Okay, so we made it. Oh man, I didn't really do a lot of video on the way here because it started in the dark, so let me back up. The plan was yesterday, which was Sunday, to meet the people with the bus at 2 p.m. But it worked out good because Sunday morning it was storming like crazy. Rain, tornado watch, thunderstorm warnings. It was just pouring. I got some pictures on the computer of the weather maps and stuff, and it was pretty awful. So I woke up fairly early. I got really good sleep the night before I slept. I went to bed fairly early for a change. I figured I had to leave by 12:30 to get down to San Antonio from Austin. It's about an hour and a half drive by the time you do traffic and everything. So I was loading as soon as I could when the weather finally broke. I had the generator, which is over 100 pounds. I got 3 spare tires for the truck. Those were pretty heavy. 2 totes full of tools, and those are very heavy. They got to be 100 pounds each. And I live on the 3rd floor, so it was like, hump them all the way down the stairs, get it to the truck. It still was kind of raining, so I pulled tarp over everything. And I had 2 or 3 lists of stuff that was going, stuff I needed for camping, stuff I needed like tools, the generator, and I bought a grinder and some other tools like that were really for doing work on the bus here. I had planned on using the grinder to take the seats out because I figured it would be faster to just grind the bolts off instead of to take them out. But it turns out that these ones came out fairly easily so far, so I'll probably just end up using, I've got electric cordless tools that I can zip the bolts out with, but you have to crawl underneath, put the vice grips on the bolt, crawl back on top, take them out, so it's like, kind of inconvenient. So I may still use the grinder, at least for a couple, but at the same time, grinding is noisy, so if you can avoid doing it, it's kind of a pain in the butt to do it that way, so. Anyway, so because of the weather and because I got a late start, I was about half an hour late, so I was close about 2:30 going down to pick them up or to meet the people with the bus. And what we did is I was asking for some basic instructions on how you drive the air brakes because I've never driven those before. And when I first looked at the bus, the guy had given me a test drive and he showed me a little bit, but that was a few months ago. So I was like, okay, so give me the run through again. So he showed me the gauge and how it worked and what to look for and everything like that. And just the basic startup procedure. If you've driven air brakes, you know it. If you've never driven air brakes, it's not just like a car where you jump in and go. The short story on air brakes is there's a spring-loaded brake system that is fully engaged, and then you use air pressure to release the brakes so that if you run out of air, the brakes come on. Alright, so if you don't have enough air when you start driving and you hit the brakes a couple times, you run out of air and the brakes come on, and then you're stuck in the middle of traffic. That's why if you're driving down the highway and you see those black skid marks going off the road, that's what happened. Is the guy's truck probably broke an air line somewhere and the brakes just came on and they go sliding off to the side, hopefully. And then you gotta fix it. So anyway, he gives me a quick test drive around the block, shows me how it works, and then we park the truck or the bus at the Walmart, which was just across the road. And you can always get away with parking something at Walmart for a little while. So from 2:30 to 3:30 I spent loading stuff from the truck into the bus, and then I took out the 4 back seats. Then I jumped back in the truck, drove back to Austin, so that's another hour and a half. So probably got to Austin by about 5:30 with traffic. I got it wrote down somewhere. Usually on a trip like this, I would have my notepad out and I would document everything, and I'm not really sure why, but this time I just didn't do it. So I was using my phone and my camera, and I shot pictures of stuff as I went. I was surprised coming into town. It looked like I had T-Mobile signal in town, which I don't think I had that last time. There's nothing out here. So I was supposed to meet at 2 o'clock. We met at 2:30. So from 2:30 until 4:47, I was in San Antonio. So yeah, by the time I got everything loaded in the bus and then took the seats out and kind of got things a little bit situated, it was 4:47. At 6:37, I was back to Austin. And then I took a shower and got cleaned up and put on some clean underwear and stuff like that because I was just completely soaked from running up and down the stairs with everything. So 7:30 I got out of Austin. 9:30 I got to San Antonio, so it was about 2 hours. They had construction. I took the same route, or I tried to take the same route, and between when I was down there at 5 o'clock and when I got back at 9:30, they had tore up the road and rerouted everything. So then I had no idea where I was at. Had a detour, was on the 410 loop, got pushed back to I-35, went through downtown, and then looped around a little bit, got off side street, pulled out my phone, figured out where I was, renavigated, came across 10 and something else, or 37 to 10 to back to 410, which is where I was supposed to be, and then got down onto Rigsby Avenue, which is where the Walmart is. So got to the bus by 9:30, so it was 2 hours. By 10:30, I had the bike loaded, and what I did there, okay, this is kind of funny, I gotta back up a second. Where the bus got parked was kind of in drive-through parking where there was other trucks and guys with trailers and stuff. And so the guy on one side was on a trailer, and then on the other side of me was a Walmart truck, tractor trailer. And where I really wanted to be was further to my right. There was a pretty good landscape berm, kind of a divider, and it was tall enough that I figured it'd make it a lot easier to load the bike if I could get backed over to it. Well, where I was parked was right next to the city bus stop, and so there was constantly people walking around, so I didn't really want to be running over somebody there. Although by that time of night there wasn't as many buses. Earlier there was a bunch of people. So I thought, okay, from where I was, I could drive forward, do a big right-hand looping turn, come all the way around, and come up on the side of the berm, and then angle myself and back up, and have my tail kind of hanging over the dirt, so that would be almost ground level then. And that part worked out pretty good. Well, I go to do my big sweeping first turn, and this is my very first time driving the bus and very first time with air brakes. And I'm sandwiched between these two guys. And I started my turn late because I didn't want to hit either one of them. And realized I'm going to hit the Walmart, and I'm like not even close to making my turn. Because you're angled, you're supposed to go the other way. Well, I didn't want to get into Walmart parking with people everywhere. You know, I figured I should drive the bus at least once for 50 feet before I get to that. So I'm like, okay, up against the Walmart, so slam on the brakes and then figure out how air brakes really work, because it's like, it doesn't feel the same. You know, you push, 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 and then all of a sudden the valve opens, you know, it's not graceful the first couple times you do it. So get stopped, try to guesstimate how close I am to the guy in the pickup, because I think he's still in his truck. Back up 4 feet, slam on the brakes again, because that's how it was. Crank the wheel, and in my mind I was thinking, yes, I know school buses take a lot of room to drive, to turn, but at the same time they're also driven in neighborhoods, so I'm like, maybe it'll turn okay. Not so much. Plus you got a lot of tail overhang that you got to worry about, because you turning one way, the tail goes the other way, and you can swat things if you're not paying attention. So 3 or 4 back up and forward. Finally I get the turn, and I'm sure the two guys in the trucks were, you know, somewhere between alarmed and amused. And finally get around the big loop, figure out kind of where I want to be. Now I got a better idea how much turning room I actually need. So that was educational, at least. And get the turn, get lined up on the curb, and then do kind of a jackknife, turn myself away from the curb and then back in, so that I'm coming at it probably a 30-40 degree angle, something like that. Pretty you know, I was taking up two parking spots, but there wasn't a lot of people out over there by then. I was hoping to get out of there quickly before somebody really was annoyed with me. So got it lined up where I wanted it. Got the back door open, propped it open. It's got a stay on it that'll lock it open. And first thing I realized is the door opens right up to 90 degrees, in which it kind of hangs into the doorway. So I didn't have as much width as I thought I was going to have, and the handlebars are actually wider than the opening. When I go to unload the bike here now, I'm going to undo that door stop so that I can get the door completely out of the way, and that'll probably give me a couple more inches, but the handlebars are actually wider than the opening is, just to make it interesting. So get the ramp up there, get the other ramp. I got 2 ramps and they're 6 feet long, and I tied one ramp to the seat so that it wouldn't slide out on me, because that's one of the things that'll get you is halfway up the ramp the ramp slides down and you drop. And it's about 430 pound bike, and I didn't really want it to drop because, you know, on top of it, I mean, this was the biggest thing on this trip. I'm gonna have to side tour on this. I'll come back. So got the ramps situated. Got one ramp right in the middle of the door, and then the second ramp right on the edge of the door. And so I'm going to put the bike on one ramp and I'm going to walk on the other ramp. And I'll show you on the unloading sequence what my original plan was, and I'll see if that actually works out or not. And I knew I wasn't going to be able to push the bike up the ramp because it's still fairly steep. And so I was standing beside the bike. I have the bike running in gear, and you slowly let the clutch out and a little bit of gas, and then at the same time your gas and your front brake are on the same hand, and also the starter button, and then on your left hand is the clutch. So you're kind of like trying to use the front brake to catch yourself if it starts to roll back, and then a little bit of gas as you let the clutch out. It's like, you know, starting a car on a hill, but you got your feet on the ground, so you're using your hands for 3 different things at the same time. So about halfway up the first time, I stalled the bike, which at first is good because when it's stalled, you can let off the brake for a second and the engine will hold you because it's not running. But then you gotta pull the clutch back in to start it, and it's like hold the front brake, reach across as far as you can to hit the starter button, and it's something I hadn't really noticed before because it's an awkward reach. Usually I don't start on a hill when I'm in gear, I guess. Plus, if you're on a hill, usually you'd have your foot on the rear brake to hold yourself, but when you're standing beside the bike, you're on the wrong side and you can't do it then. So I managed to get it started, a little bit of gas, feather the clutch, let go of the brake as it starts to move, and then at the same time you're trying to make sure you're centered on the ramp and you can't see your back wheel, so you hope you're centered. And as you're coming up to the top, you know you're too wide. So you try to, it works out that the front wheel is just inside the bus, so it's off the ramp, just before your handlebars hit. So that actually you can use that to your advantage, because now you can steer a little bit. Just be careful that your back wheel doesn't fall off the ramp. So you get it, turn one way, lean the bike a little bit, try to get the handlebar in, and then try to push it the other way and turn it at the same time. And I think I stalled it 2 more times there, and I got it to the point where I was both handlebars in and the bike was dead. I had stalled it again, and at that point I'm like, okay, it's in, it's not going to fall out again. So I just kind of like pushed it over and let it lean up against the door, and then got myself on the inside, and then from reaching kind of awkwardly from the front wheel towards the back, you grab the handlebars, and once you're pulling on it, then you hit the clutch and then it pulls it in. And that worked out okay. It wasn't real graceful. It would definitely be easier with 2 people. It would be nice to have one person on the inside and maybe one person on the outside even, you know, to help push it up. I think in the future, somebody mentioned it on one of the forums, something like a little electric winch would be great. You know, you could leave the bike off, leave it in neutral, have both hands on the handlebar and just have a trigger that you could push to have it go up, and then you could have a lot more control, and you let go of the trigger and it would stop. And that might be something to think about. Even like a little boat winch or something like that. So, of course, at work, not the trucks I work on, but the bigger trucks have lift gates on them, and they don't really look that complicated. So I might explore that as an option for down the road. A lot of this depends on, am I going to just live in the bus here? Am I ever going to drive it again? I've got a lot of work to do before I make this into a motorhome. I got to paint the outside. I got a bunch of broken windows I can fix. I got to gut the inside, set it up, add plumbing, fresh water system, gray and black water system, shower, sink, some kind of toilet, furnish it a little bit, so there's a lot of work I can do. I don't have to do all of it right away, but I don't expect to be driving it anywhere for probably the next year at least. So, down the line, if I decide I want to drive this, across country, that was one of the ideas when I bought it, was I could drive it for a day, park it, jump on the motorcycle, do day trips, and come back and live in the bus. So when I retire in about 6 or 7 more years, that's definitely an option. And really, driving this thing for 500 miles since last night, I could totally do that, Maybe not drive it 500 miles at a time, because I probably got somewhere around 4 miles to the gallon. I'm going to add that up later. I wasn't documented as close as I should, but I do have all my receipts, and I know where each one was. So I don't know my last leg. I know how many miles I went since the last fill up, but I don't know how many gallons, because I'm not going to fill it up and then leave it here for a year. So anyway, at the time I'm making this is the beginning of April 2017, and I'm expecting to be transferred out here to El Paso. This property is about 90 miles from El Paso, so what I'm hoping to do is get transferred out here to the El Paso location, keep the same basic job that I do and the same money I do, and not pay $700 a month on rent at my apartment, and just live here in the bus. So that's why I have the bus here. In the meantime, I'm paying $500 a month on the bus for 2 more months after this month. But after that, no rent, no bus payment, just the land payment. My minimum land payment is $340 a month for 80 acres. Obviously, if I pay it off faster, it's going to be a lot cheaper. Okay, so Walmart, I don't think I documented that, but after I got the bike loaded at 10:30 that night, last night, took a little break, went into Walmart, bought myself a little tiny microwave. Yeah, bugs. I got a little microwave, I got some oatmeal, because I was out of oatmeal at home, so I thought, okay, for $4 I got breakfast here. And then I've got enough water to make oatmeal, and I also have a propane stove here somewhere. We left San Antonio, and okay, so I got out of my parking spot. Well, before I got out of my parking spot, when I was walking into Walmart, I was pre-walking my route to kind of get a feel for how am I going to get from where I'm parked across the Walmart parking lot to the gas station at Walmart. Okay. And, in a car, that's pretty simple. But in this huge unknown of a bus that I have no idea how to drive, and as life throws these things at you, you don't get to just drive it around in an empty parking lot like you're supposed to. You get thrown right in the middle of everything. So, I'm like, okay, I'll pre-walk it first, kind of get a feel for it. I walked it 2 or 3 different ways. I'm like, oh, I don't want to go that way. I don't want to go this way. I don't want to go that way. Finally, I'm like, okay, I think if I go here, and again, it was the wrong way from where I was parked. So those 2 guys in the trucks are probably still afraid. But so I'm like, okay, get off the curb, go forward, straighten up, back up, and then turn behind them. And it was like, okay, drive to an intersection, nobody in the way, swing wide, because there's, the concrete barriers there, or curbs, and getting a better feel for it now, how much you have to swing. But it's like you got to compromise between, you got to be wide enough to get it to turn, because it doesn't turn as sharp as a car, and you got to be not sticking out so far that if somebody's coming the other way that you hit them, because you're half in their lane. And I've been paying attention to city buses the last 6 months, probably, just watching them, because if they start off too close to the curb, they run over the curb making the turn, or they go way into the oncoming traffic. So you kind of hope that nobody's beside you. You get out, swing it around, and then get back in before somebody hits you, kind of thing. And then you hope you don't run over the curb on the inside, because there's always somebody standing there. So big sweeping right-hand turn, go into Walmart parking, do a big sweeping there, cover about 2.5 lanes. And I had figured it out. If I hit the right parking aisle, I had a dead shot for the easiest gas pump. And on the other side of the gas pump was an immediate exit onto the on-ramp, or the service road. I missed the on-ramp. I would have had to go back half a block. But that was actually worked out in my favor. So anyway, I got in there, got gas. I'll add this later as far as how much it was. But the first stop at Walmart, they pre-authorize at the pump for $75, which is pretty common. That'll cover most people. Well, I put $75 in, and it was still going. So I had to pull my card out again and hit it again. And then it was enough to fill it up. And so I'll put the totals on there after, because I don't want to look it up right now. So got it filled up, start the bus up, wait for the air again. I've realized that there's probably an air leak, because I don't think the air should bleed down that fast. I mean, just in the amount of time it takes to pump gas. So granted, it was almost 60 gallons. It's a 60-gallon tank, and they gave it to me just about empty, which makes sense. You're not going to sell a used vehicle with full tank of gas anymore. So gas at Walmart there was about $2.10, $2.20, I think, something like that. So, okay, finally get the air filled up, and the time it took the air tank to fill up, the guy is outside trying to talk to me, so I'm trying to hear him over the engine and everything, but he's, I think he was on a bicycle, and he wants to know if this was the bus from across the road, and I'm like, yeah, it's not I just bought it, I don't own the company. Oh, okay, he wants to know everything about the bus. I'm like, I've driven it literally 400 feet. I don't know a lot about this bus yet. Okay. Off we go. So now I got 90 or 100 PSI. And I've noticed between me driving it and watching the guy that I bought it from, if you idle it, it'll take frickin' forever to fill up, and you never really get, it never really gets above 100, because at idle, I think it's losing air faster than it's gaining. If you speed up a little bit, idle it up, it'll fill up a little bit faster. When you actually start driving, because then you're at 4,000 RPM on the highway, yeah, it'll hold 120, 125 just fine. So there's a leak there somewhere probably, and it's just blowing it by. So, you get 90 or so, and when you get going, it's probably going to be all right. And what I had noticed was, well, I finally figured out, there's a dimmer on the instrument lights, but there's no lights that work on the air tank. The gauge is there, but no lights, so I had to figure out my flashlight situation. Well, thankfully, I bought a whole bunch of these flashlights from Harbor Freight, some from Walmart, the red and blue ones. I'll show them later, but they've got a magnet on the back. They've got a light that comes out one way, which is your main light, which was the light that I was, thinking of using, and a little light that shines out the end. And you switch between the two. Well, that little light isn't very useful, I didn't think, and I'm like, that's kind of stupid. So some of the lights I was taking apart and rewiring them with a bigger battery, because they use like AAAs, and so I put some bigger batteries in there, and I almost took out that little light, because I'm like, it's not very useful, so I was just gonna take that part out. Well, that turns out to be the light that is really useful after all, because it had the perfect amount of light to hit that little gauge. And the nice thing about these school buses, almost everything inside is steel, so your magnetic light just sticks everywhere. So thankfully I've got geez, probably 7 or 8 of those lights now. Because every time I'd go to Walmart, I'd see them and I'd pick up a couple more. So I can use those for my dome lights when I'm off grid power, and just put them wherever you want, stick them to the ceiling, turn them on, and when they go dead, grab another one and then recharge them. So that's going to work out really good. So the whole time I was driving at night, or most of the time, I had that light sitting there, and I could keep an eye on my air gauge. Once you get going, it seemed to stay up, and everything was fine. But in theory, if you were stepping on the brake enough at idle, you could probably bleed the brakes down to the point where they'd stay on and you'd be stuck. So you kind of pay attention to that. Also, the air pump is engine driven and with the belt, and if the belt broke, you'd be out of brakes in about 4 minutes. So thereabouts. It's good to know. There's a light that comes on when the air pressure drops just before the brakes slam on, so hopefully you see the light and get off the road quickly. So, note for future self, if you do drive this bus again, or a lot, get that belt, get a spare belt for the air pump. Okay, Froggy. Side note, oh, is it so nice to be out of Austin. There's no humidity out here. I don't think I'm allergic to anything out here, compared to everything in Austin. So I'm a little froggy because it was really, really cold last night and my throat got cold. So it's not allergies this time. Yay. So happy. Okay. Get out of Walmart, first full tank of gas, trying to figure out how I'm getting out of San Antonio. I had planned one way, and then with the construction, I was like, crap, what if the other way has construction too? So I did kind of a quick reroute, and had my phone giving me navigation, which is kind of sketchy, and I don't have a phone holder in the bus yet, so it was kind of propped up. And I'm trying to pay attention to the phone, which exit I'm turning on, trying to get a feel for the bus, how much room I need, how the steering is. Steering is not very good on the bus, by the way. It's after driving it a while, I'm like, either the steering box is completely worn out, or my tie rods are worn out, because you got a lot of play. I mean, it's like, geez, on the trucks I work on, if you got 2 inches of play, you get concerned. This thing's probably got 8 inches of play on the steering wheel. If you're on the road crown, so it's rolling over, you take the slack out of the steering, and then it's pretty good, because the truck always tries to roll down off the edge towards the ditch. So, and most of the roads have some crown, and so that works very well. Every once in a while you come off the crown, or the road gets flat, or you go around a corner, and all of a sudden you got to move the steering wheel like 6 inches to catch it, and you hope there's not somebody beside you, because you're like, whoa, and then nothing happens, and then you finally get it, and then it goes the other way, and so that's probably something to look at. I'm sure that's very expensive to fix. So I drove at 500 miles like that, but because the mission for this week is to get the bus here. That's it. Just get the bus here, and mission success. And then beyond that, get back home again. So we still got that part coming up. Yeah, a 500-mile trip on the motorcycle. Yeah, I haven't done anything like that in about 4 years, so we'll see how that goes. The bike is in good shape. It's a long, long ride. You ride an hour and you're ready to get off, and that's going to be about 8 hours, probably. Whew. Yeah. Anyway, probably split that up in a couple of days somehow, or try to break it up a little bit. And Friday is payday, so then I got money for going home again. So that works out good. Because I think I'm just about broke now. Okay, so get out of Walmart, eventually get out of San Antonio, go up 410, picked up, I forget, I'll show the map later. It kind of made sense at the time. Eventually get on 10 going west. First, let's see, how did this work out? I didn't want to push my luck too far on the first tank, although I knew that the tank was basically on empty when I bought the bus, and I knew I put in about 55 or so gallons, so I knew about where empty should be because I was still driving when I put the gas in the first time, so it wasn't completely empty. And so I was kind of watching the gas gauge, and I think I ran it to about a half a tank the first time. Oh, when I first bought gas, I also filled up the gas can, so I knew I had 5 gallons. And I figured I probably got 4 miles to the gallon. I was hoping I'd do better than that, but I think in reality it was pretty close to 4 miles to the gallon. So I thought, okay, a 5-gallon gas can should give me at least 20 miles, depending how full the can is. So I was like, all right. So I stopped when I had about a half a tank showing, and oh, let's see, it was it was late. I don't know if I got that on here or not. No, not on here. It'll be on the camera on the other memory card. I took pictures of the gas pumps as I was filling, so I think that'll show the time. And I wasn't logging miles very good, but I know where I bought the gas because it's on the receipt, so I'll double check that later. But so I pull off, and I think it was at Junction. And the first place I saw, and this is late now, it's 1 o'clock in the morning or something ridiculous like that. And this is like, okay, I've driven the truck to San Antonio and back, so that's 85 miles times 2, so it's 170. And then the motorcycle for another 85 miles, plus loading and unloading and reloading, and then loading the bike, and then learning how to drive a bus and learning how to drive air brakes and driving through downtown San Antonio on the freeways. And then, oh, not really sure how many of my lights work at this point. I hadn't taken the time to check them. The guy I bought it from said they did a quick walk around and it looked like everything was working, so I just went with that. I never, world's worst mechanic ever, never popped the hood, never checked my fluids, walked around, looked at the tires. I think 2 of the tires have been low the whole time, but as I was driving it, every time I'd stop, I'd check them, and they weren't getting very hot, so it's kind of a quick and dirty check. I don't honestly know how much air pressure is supposed to be in a bus tire. I was going to look that up and I forgot. So I thought, well, if it's above 50 psi, the tire pressure gauge I have for my motorcycle won't even do that. I do have an air compressor, a little 12-volt one, and that would have been a giant pain in the butt to get to work because I'd have to rig up one of my spare batteries to a cigarette lighter adapter. I think I have all the parts, I just didn't know where they were. And I'm like, oh, do I really want to go through all that right now? So I didn't. Although the air compressor, I think, has a tire pressure gauge on it, so I could have at least used it to see if the tire was low and then decided if I was going to go through the trouble. Because on one side of the bus, the tires have kind of a bulge on the bottom, and the other side they don't. And I'm like, it's probably lower on this side, so I'm going to check that later and just see how bad off they were. When I have internet, so I could look up what the proper pressure was supposed to be. So, being the ultimate retard, I drove it for 500 miles with 2 tires that I think are low, with no spare or no jack. Yeah. And I am a professional mechanic, and I didn't check any of my fluids. And the high beams don't work on the headlights. Low beams worked, and they were actually fairly good. But no high beams. You hit high beams and lights just go off. There's nothing. Probably a blown fuse somewhere. Which I think the fuse box is over there somewhere. I saw something that might be a fuse box. And I do have spare fuses, I think, with me also. And that's the other problem is I threw things in random boxes, and if I absolutely needed something, I probably could have found it. Maybe. Maybe not. Not sure. So, get to the first, I think it was a Shell. come rolling off, and I'm like, okay, I just wanted to get gas and get going. I wasn't really too picky where I got it from. And see the shell, I'm like, okay, it's really dark. The lights are all off, but the pumps were still turned on. So I thought, well, okay, you know, if the pumps are on, it'll work. So I had to use the flashlight to even see what I was doing. Get the pump turned on, authorized my card, but no gas came out. So they had turned off the main switch, but the pumps were still turned on. So, okay, fine. Well, in the process of that, and I remember doing it, and this is because it was about 1:30 in the morning, and it'd been a long day already. I remember doing it and remember thinking that's a bad idea, but for whatever reason I put my debit card on top of the gas pump, and then probably because the first time I filled up I needed to authorize it twice to get enough gas. So maybe that's what I was thinking, I don't know. So I try it, it doesn't work, put the gas cap back on, shut the door, put the hose away, put my wallet in my pocket, didn't pick up my gas card. There. Didn't realize it. Thankfully, I didn't get any gas because that forced me then to stop at the next exit like a mile away. So back on the freeway. Next exit, pull into this big travel center, Flying J or Loves, or there's a few of them that are pretty good here. And that'll be on the picture, so I know that, and I got the receipt. Pull in there, find a good spot to park, you know, look for an easy pump that I can get in and out of again. I'm getting better at that now, but get in, pop the air brake, shut the engine off, shut the lights off, grab my wallet, look at the gas pump. It says you have to prepay inside. This one is broken, the reader. Okay, fine. Walk inside. Halfway up to the cash register, I'm pulling out my wallet because I try to be ready. I can't find my red card. I'm like, oh no. Turn around, get back out to the bus, look around, make sure I didn't leave it somewhere obvious. I didn't see it. Okay, fire up the bus. You know, unfortunately, I'm not out of gas. I had a lot of gas. Now, was it back one exit or two exits? I don't really remember, you know. So, get back to the first exit. It looks about right. Pull off, get in, get to the, you know, the gas station. Of course, it's closed, so that's good. There's nobody else there. And I'd only been there 5 minutes earlier. Park the bus, pop the air brake, jump out, go over, yep, there it is, pick up my card, put it in my wallet, walk over, jump in the bus, pop the air brake off, drive it around, get it on the freeway, get back to the second gas station again, and, you know, park the bus, pop the air brake, shut the lights off, shut the engine off, jump out. Didn't even look at this gas pump. I could have paid at the pump at the second one because I didn't end up getting to the same pump. But I knew I had to prepay on the first one, so I go walking in there. Okay. For whatever reason, my red gas card that has, you know, my main debit card that has about $1,000 on it, I think, doesn't work. Denied. You know, won't work. Okay, so she runs it a couple times, types in my zip code, my, you know, verification number, and a couple things. And she's like, oh, you know, maybe you have to call them up, you know, because, you know, you're on vacation or, you know, and you filled up 3 times in the last hour kind of thing. Well, I'm like, I don't feel like messing with that right now, so I look around and grab my other card. And so I got my second card that's got, I knew it had 150 on it, so I'm like, okay, we'll use that one this time. Pay with that one. And that goes well. And I'm like, you know, and then I was like, well, how much do you prepay? Well, I don't know. I usually ride a motorcycle with a 5-gallon gas tank. I'm not used to the 60-gallon tank. And I'm like, well, it's a 60-gallon tank. It shows about half a tank. So that's 30 gallons. It's $240 or something like that. And I'm like, okay, give me $80. Okay, runs it for 80. That goes through. And I don't use 80. I used about 30 gallons. You know, so I was happy to see that the gas gauge, at least on the first half, is really close. You know, it's about half a tank showing. Put in 30 gallons thereabouts, so it was pretty close. So I'm like, okay, that's actually good. You know, the trucks I work on, gas gauges are awful. They'll run out at half a tank sometimes. So it's good to know this is actually a fairly accurate gas gauge. So, okay, get the gas, get back on the highway, everything's good. It's, you know, 1:32 in the morning by now. And I'm actually still feeling really good. You know, probably the excitement and the fear factor of, you know, oh, I'm scared. I'm pretty wide awake still, aside from losing my credit card. Um, so I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna keep driving. I'm like, you know, I don't know if I could drive all the way. I mean, what would be the point of driving all the way in the dark and getting here in the dark? You know, there's no point in pushing it that hard. But I figured, well, if I'm awake, I'm going to keep driving. And eventually, I started to get tired. So I had hit one rest stop. Wasn't really tired. Got back out on the road. Next rest stop, I was like, yeah, I'm starting to feel it. And I had some coffee with me, but it was getting cold, and I'm like, yeah, I'm getting kind of tired. So pulled off, and I have my folding army cot bed thing. And my plan was, depending how I parked the motorcycle, I should be able to put the bed right next to it. Well, I put the motorcycle in a little bit different spot, but I still had kind of enough room to, you know, but it was awkward. So I'm like trying to unfold the bed and put it on the ground with the ramps on the ground and or on the floor, not on the ground. I'm in the back of the bus. And finally I get it just situated where I got just enough room. If I crawl over the seat, I can land on the bed, and I'm basically in bed now. And but the ramps were on the floor, and they got really sharp edges. So I thought, okay, if I wake up and decide I need to get up really quick for some reason, I don't want to be barefoot and step on those ramps, because that'll be really painful. So I I'll just sleep with my clothes on, and I had a couple horse blankets, so I just grabbed a blanket and pulled it over me, and I had a stocking cap on, or a toque, and had a jacket with a hood, and actually that was pretty comfortable. But by morning it was getting pretty cold. It was probably down to 40 or so. So woke up a couple times, put my toque back on, tried to get warm, pulled the blanket up, and I was tired enough that I could sleep, and I'd wake up and roll over and go back to sleep, and it was decent sleep. It worked out okay. I used to sleep on that cot when I first moved to Austin. I slept on that for over a year, so I'm pretty used to it. So that's almost normal for me to sleep on. So woke up, and I'm like, hey, it's getting light outside, and I leaned up to look out the windows, which is pretty cool. You got windows all the way around you, so it's like I'm liking that. It's like, this is gonna be great. You know, that's one of the things I hate about my apartment, is I only can see two directions, and not very much. It's really dark. This is gonna be. I'm really excited about the windows. So lean up, and I'm like, boom, right into the sun. I mean, like, the sun is just coming up, and it's like, boom, right there. You know, it's like, oh, sunrise. Okay, check. Saw the sunrise. You know. So a couple times I woke up in the middle of the night, and I'm like, you wake up, and you're always confused when you wake up, and you're like, wow, this is real. You know, I'm in a bus, and my motorcycle is right next to me. This is the coolest thing ever. You know, because this has been 3 or 4 months in the making now, and I've had this whole list of things that are going to go wrong. You know, and to actually at least have the motorcycle in the bus and on the road, I've already won. I feel like, because I've gotten through 3 or 4 major hurdles. You know, I've gotten the bus out of the Walmart parking lot. I've gotten the motorcycle into the bus, because loading the motorcycle in the bus was kind of scary. I really was like, okay, I knew I had to do it, and I did the best I could, but I wasn't 100% sure it was going to work. You know, I mean, I could have slipped, I could have dropped the bike, I could have landed on myself, I could have got hurt, could have broken the bike, you know. So there's a lot of issues there, and, you know, finally getting that together, I'm like, okay, good. You know, just driving in Texas by itself is scary sometimes. You know, I had people try to hit me regularly, you know, so it's just, I'm like, okay, I'm in the bus, you know. So I get up, and I'm just starting to get moved around. I'm looking for a cup of coffee, and there's a guy outside the door knocking, and I'm like, hey, what's up, you know. And of course he doesn't speak English, and he's trying to tell me what he needs, and I don't understand, and he can't tell me. So I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't help you. And okay, so he leaves. He doesn't, he's not too offended or whatever. And and then you feel bad, So I kind of was watching to see what they were doing, and I can see him and a couple other guys, and it looks like they're trying to get the tire off or something like that. So I'm like, okay. So I go walking out there and just, pointing, and realize that the wheel lug nuts are too tight on their truck, and they can't break it loose, and they don't have enough tools to get it. And so I'm like, okay, hang on. I look down to see what size socket they were using, and I'm like, well, most of my stuff is metric that I have with me, which is bad because this is a standard bus. There's no metric on this bus, but most of my tools are metric from the motorcycles and stuff. So I was like, all right, well, let me go see what I got, and I just kind of, like, wait, I'll be right back. So I walk, and first I look around. I've got a good half-inch breaker bar, good long breaker bar, but they had a 3/8 socket. So I look around, and hey, look at that! I do have a half-inch to 3/8 adapter. So I grabbed that and the breaker bar, and I walk down there and hand it to them. Oh, okay, great. Whatever they say, and the wheel lug nuts are so stinking tight, they broke the adapter. I was like flabbergasted. I mean, I'm sure I didn't spend very much on it, but I was like, wow, to break a half-inch to 3/8 adapter bracket. I mean, the adapter. I mean, it was just like, wow, okay. So I'm like, okay, hang on. And I got more stuff. So I walk back and look around, and I have a whole set of deep sockets, impact sockets, so they're pretty strong, that I had bought mainly just, for taking the lug nuts off of my truck, and I've never used them. They were still shrink wrapped even. So I opened it up, figure out that I need wire cutters to get the stinking plastic off of these things because they're all, cobbled together so you can't steal them or something like that. And find everything I need, get it all figured out, get out there. Okay, we find one that fits. And it takes the two of them taking turns just about jumping on it to break it loose, but they finally get them all loose. And then they have to lift the truck up a little bit more, and they got the little jack that comes with the truck. And now I feel bad because I own a floor jack and jack stands, but I didn't bring them with me because I didn't think, well, I don't have the tools to change the tire, so having the jack didn't make a lot of sense. I figured, well, it's better for me to leave the jack in my truck in case I need to change my truck tire. So I left it with the truck, and they really could use it with these guys. But so they get the jack all the way up to the highest that it'll go because it's got pretty big tires on the truck. And just at the point where the wheel comes off, the truck rolls a little bit, and it twists the jack into a pretzel. I mean, it just mangled that jack, and the truck lands on the rear brake rotor. And the guy just gets out of the way because he had been just laying under the truck trying to operate the jack, and he had just got out, and then the truck fell. I was like, man, that guy could have been killed, So now we need a jack. We got the wheel off, need a jack, and I'm like, sorry, I don't have one. And we look around, and this is at a rest stop, and there's 4 or 5 other trucks there. So the guy just starts walking up and down asking, and about that time I see another truck driving in, so I hold up my hand and say, hey, guy gets out, and he looks Mexican, so I almost, looked at the other guy. He's like, you want to talk to him? And so I'm like, hey, do you have a jack? And he's like, oh, yeah. He speaks really good English, so, he talks to me, he never talks to the Mexican guys, so I'm like, all right, whatever. So he's got a jack, so he hands it to the other guy, and the guy gets it all figured out and everything. And in the meantime, this guy goes and uses the restroom. And so by this time, the other guy comes back, and so they get the truck jacked up again and get the wheel on it, get it tightened down by the time the guy gets back. And so everything is good, and it's big high fives, and everybody's happy. So yeah, anyway, so you bring, you never know what you're gonna need, and I tend to bring so many tools with me on a trip because you never know what you're going to need. And I was pretty sure there was nothing on this bus that I would know how to fix, but sometimes you get lucky, you just realize that the belt came loose and you can put it back on, and, if you can find it, that kind of thing. So anyway, so I never needed to fix any of my own stuff, but I did help some other guys that couldn't get their wheel off. So, that worked out good. So that was the morning, this morning, and I forget exactly where, but I got it, or I think I got that on camera somewhere. So from there, I drove, got another tank of gas. I think I filled up 3 times, something like that. The last one was at, I think, Fort Stockton, something. That one took over $100 again because I had ran it right down. I forget exactly, but I got the receipt. I'll look that up later. But it was down. I was, looking at the signs going by, and I'm like 15 miles, and I'm looking at the gas gauge, and I'm like, okay, if it runs out at 20 miles to the gas station, I got probably 20 miles worth of gas in my gas can. It'll be close, And I felt like I was within 5 miles of not making it, kind of thing. Probably should have stopped sooner, but you think you can make it. And my reason for wanting to push that stop is from the next stop, I can make it to here on 1 tank. And so I've got, I think, 5 gallons left. It's about a quarter of a tank showing. So 5 to 10 gallons left, and that's good because I don't want to leave a bunch of gas in here if it's just going to sit for a long time. I think what I'm going to plan on when I bring my truck out here is I'm going to bring a siphon and siphon most of the gas out of this and put it in the truck. And then whenever I come back out here, then I can bring a gas can out and I'll start the truck up start the bus up every now and then and just run it for a while and then change the oil. And you don't want to leave it sitting for 6 years and never start it, kind of thing. So anyway, so I'm driving along, things are going, amazingly well. It's nice driving in the daylight again, and coming out here that time of day, if you get here in the morning or before noon, the sun is behind you. That's great. Usually what happens is I'm driving into the sunset on the way out here because you're going west, and so you're going blind driving into the sunset. And then in the morning when you're going home, you're driving into the sunrise, so you get the sun in your face both ways. Well, if you drive out here in the night and stop halfway, and then you get the sun in your back, that's great. So try to plan that out next time. Anyway, so I know that I have no cell phone coverage here on the property. And the last 2 times I came out here, the only cell phone coverage I had on my carrier is about 30 miles either way. So either 30 miles before I get to the town here, or if I go in towards El Paso, I got to go almost 30 miles before I start to see coverage again. There's just nothing out here. So I'm driving along and I'm kind of getting at the point where I think I should be getting coverage, and I happen to look at the phone. Nope, no, nothing yet. Then I think about it. I'm like, well, reboot the phone because sometimes that makes a difference. And so I shut off the phone, turn it back on. Sure enough. And I every time I'd see a tower, and I've done this every time I've come out here, every time you see a cell phone tower, you look at your phone, and it's for the other guys. Yours never works, but the other one would work. So I'm like, I was pretty sure I should have had coverage by about then. So restart the phone. Okay, sure enough, there it works. So I'm like thinking about it, and there's not really a place to pull over. But like, I didn't want to take a chance on missing it, so I'm like, all right, so I go ahead and pull over, hit the flashers, get right off the road so that I don't get ran over. Nice thing about a school bus, people generally don't hit you, but it's still polite to get off the road, I guess. So get all the way off, flashers on. I do have a little bit of coverage still. I should have stopped sooner, but I was kind of like, do you want to stop? Do you not want to stop? It wasn't a really good spot, but I'm like, whatever. So I pull over. So I'm just kind of almost driving out of coverage again, but it was just on the verge of working. So I figure, okay, I'll get out of the bus and walk around a little bit. So I shut the bus off, leave the flashers on, walk around, trying to figure out a spot where I get good coverage because I'm just almost out of it again. Looking, and I'm like, my whole purpose for wanting to stop is today is the last day for paying my rent without it having a late fee. And I decided not to pay rent before I left because in case I had problems, I might need $500 to get a tire or something like that, So I thought, well, I'd rather have the cash, and if I'm a few days late on rent, I can pay it next payday, Friday, not a big deal. They always make it a big deal, but I'll get over it, kind of thing. So I thought, well, okay. Once I was within 50 miles of here, I thought, well, I'm probably going to make it. You know, I'm feeling pretty good about making it. I don't think I have any problems anymore. So let me pull over, use the phone, get on the internet. I usually don't do that, but usually I just pay him with a check. But this way I could do it here. So get the website loaded up, get my account information in there, figure out how much I'm supposed to pay. I actually brought the bill with me this time so I could do it. And typed in the number, and then it sits there, and it sits there, and it sits there. And I'm like, is it going through? You don't want to have it go through twice, you know. And the page will not load. I'm like, oh, are you kidding me? And I'm like just hanging there on half a bar, kind of like, and I'm holding the phone up, moving it around, you know. Finally, I'm like, okay, if it works, they're going to send me a confirmation. So let me open up my email program. Well, I haven't been on the internet for the last day and a half, so I've got, you know, a bunch of emails coming in. And so now I gotta, you know, wait for that one to come in. Well, first I had to get the email program up to find the page, you know, so I'll go find the email that tells me where the page is. So I had to go back 3 days to find that, and then wait for the new one to load also. And you know, you don't have any bandwidth out there. Anyway, so finally the email comes up that yes, the payment went through. So I'm like, okay, good. So I can close the other page now, even though I never got the actual confirmation on the page. I got the email, so that's good enough. Close that. I'm like, okay, good. Everything's good. I'm all happy. My debt to society is paid. I can now continue the last half an hour of my trip in peace. The bus will not start. Seriously, I'm like, are you kidding me? You know, I've just declared that the bus is trustworthy. I don't need to save that $800 that's in my checking account. I can just continue on my way. And I'm like, oh my God, what is it going to cost me? And this is one of the big fears on this bus was, if I have a flat tire on the road, what does roadside assistance do for a bus tire? I mean, these things got to be expensive, you know. I honestly, I was scared to even look it up, but, you know, I mean, my truck tires are over $100 a piece, so I can't imagine what bus tires would be. And then having a heavy mechanic come out to put the tire on for you, you know. I'm scared. You know, I got no idea. Maybe $500. I have no idea. You know. So here I am with, you know, the bus will not start, and I'm like literally, I don't know, half an hour from here, something like that. Are you kidding me? But because I am a pessimist, and also because I'm a geek, I brought 2 spare batteries with me. One is the old battery from my truck, and I had taken the time this last week to charge it so that it was fully charged. And then I also have a deep cycle battery that I'm going to use with my inverter so that I can have power, so I can charge laptops and stuff like that. I just realized I've been talking for over an hour. Holy cow. Anyway, I don't know, my voice hurts. So, no problem. I'm a mechanic. I have things with me, so I look around. Yep, got my jumper cables. Got 2 spare batteries, so, and I know where the battery is on the truck or on the bus. So I'm like, okay, this is easy. Grab my spare battery, grab my jumper cables, walk around, open the battery compartment, reach inside, connect, and I'm like, you know, in my head I'm thinking, okay, the very first time I did a test to get my job as a mechanic, they give you what they call the bench test, just to see if you kind of know what you're doing before they even let you touch anything. You know, before you get hired, you have to pass this test. And in my head, the way that you're supposed to jump start a vehicle just seems wrong. So I've always, I've always done it backwards. You know, there's an order you're supposed to connect things. So I'm looking at my jumper cables and like, oh, don't screw this up because somebody's gonna laugh at me again. You know, so I'm like, I think I got it right this time. But okay, hooked it up, and then I'm like, okay, if you hook up a good battery to a dead battery, you want to start as quickly as you can because the dead battery is going to be sucking the juice out of the good battery, so you don't want to waste too much time. And normally you'd have another vehicle running to be charging the good battery. You know, you don't just hook up a good battery to a dead battery, so you try to hurry. And, you know, so I get there, and of course I got to jump over, like, I got the cooler right in the way, you know, crap, get over that, start it up really quick, and and then it's so much traffic is going by me, I can't even hear the engine start. So I'm like, is it cranking? I'm watching the tach bounce, and so I close the window so I can kind of hear it. It almost, the first time I wasn't sure if it was cranking. Second time it definitely was cranking. And then you let off because you don't want to kill it. And just as I let off, it almost started. I'm like, oh, I might have wasted the only good shot. There's always that feeling like, you just blew it. You're going to be doomed to live out here in the desert for the rest of your life. But I'm like, okay, so I waited a second because if you wait a second, the battery kind of recovers a little bit. Hit it again, and keep in mind, my spare battery is the one I took out of my truck because it wasn't good enough to keep in my truck. So I was like, this is kind of sketchy, but I'm like, if this doesn't work, I got other ideas still, because I'm kind of weird that way. So fired, third or fourth time, it's going, lights up. I'm like, woohoo, happy dance, let it run for a second. Okay, everything's good. So here's the deal. Apparently, even though I drove the truck all night with the lights on, everything's fine. And I started it several times. Every time I stopped at a rest stop or for gas, I'd shut it off. It starts right back up. This time when I parked it, I left the hazards on and shut it off. Hazards, you should be able to run those for hours. So yeah, in about 10 minutes, the hazards pulled the battery down to the point where it wouldn't start. Yeah, go figure. So also, if I ever do drive this bus again, I'm switching everything out to LEDs, because LEDs will run for you days without running the batteries dead. So bus starts. I'm like, okay, jump back out, pick up the battery, pick up everything, jumper cables, put them away. Close the door, get back in, let it run for a while, and of course now I gotta wait for the air pressure to charge up again. And everything's good. So from there, it's just followed the road back in, and here we are. But it was just like, you drive for 450 miles with really no problems. Just when you think you got it, made in the shade, you kill the battery with the hazard lights. That just, that's the kind of, you really can't complain, because I was expecting the engine to blow up, air brakes to give me problems, tires to go flat. There's so many little things that could go wrong. That was a problem I could fix. I feel kind of happy that was the problem that I got, because I'm like, oh, I know how to fix this. This is no big deal. But there's 100 things I don't know how to fix yet on this bus. So usually I have flat tires. So yay. We're here now. I got some video of the drive in the road, so I can leave that up. I'll post that up separately. But today, let's see, it's 4:30 my time, but it's actually 3:30 local time. Like literally, this county is where it switches to mountain time, and the rest of Texas is central time. And I knew it was somewhere around here, but I didn't remember seeing exactly where the sign is. So it's like literally 30 miles down the road. So we're still in Texas, but we have a time zone change. So anyway, that's enough talking for now. I'm gonna put some of these batteries on charger probably. And I got 9 minutes left on this card, and the other card is full. And I don't know if I grabbed any more memory cards or not. I was going to grab card readers, and I don't think I did that either, so I think I can hook this up to the camera and download them at least, but otherwise there won't be any footage for the rest of the week. Anywho, okay, that's enough for now. I'm going to get something to eat and something to drink because I'm dehydrated, and I'm here. I'm on the ranch. Bye for now.